The things that you'll hear when listening to random episodes of Montreal Sports Talk Radio. Yeah, that's right. We are talking about a topic that has been beaten to death over the course of the past few years. It revolves around the Montreal Canadiens, and it also revolves around the Pittsburgh Penguins. And the captain of the Pens that everybody knows and loves, you know him as the imposter at Tim Hortons trying to get rookie cards, and the character foil to the Great Eight. It is none other than Mr. 87 himself, Sid the Kid, Sidney Crosby. Because over the past few years, we've had the discussion on this YouTube channel about whether or not Sidney Crosby could one day find himself playing for the Montreal Canadiens, the team which drafted Crosby's father decades and decades ago, a team that you could say Crosby would have been local to, since Montreal was the closest NHL team to when he was growing up, that or Quebec City, take your pick. But ultimately, the Sidney Crosby Montreal rumors have been rampant over the years. Not necessarily because anybody said anything substantial, not because an Elliot Friedman or somebody went out there and said, oh yeah, Montreal's interested in this guy. It's literally just folks like me on YouTube, folks on Twitter, folks all over social media, and people on the radio who hypothesize about a Crosby reunion in Montreal. And I say reunion loosely because Sid's dad was drafted by the Habs. But leave it to none other than Yvon Lambert to go out there and spill it out on Sports Talk Radio just how legit the Sidney Crosby Montreal talk actually was. If you're not familiar with Lambert, he actually was a Canadiens player back in the 70s. Pretty good player too, might I add. Decent point production, consistent 30, 20-goal seasons, and he inevitably found himself playing in Buffalo to end off his NHL career. But earlier 2 days ago on 98.5 Sports Talk Radio in Montreal, there was a long audio hit with Mr. Lambert himself, who ended up saying this. Now, I'm going to leave a link in the description of two pieces. First, it's the actual audio on 98.5 FM, and then an article transcribing some of the comments made. Lambert says here, Kent Hughes asked me if he should go get Sidney Crosby. Now, there is an entire 1 hour and 46-minute audio segment included on this webpage, and within it, of course, it is in French, there is the conversation about Sidney Crosby. Now, there are other topics that are covered in this audio: a musical performance by Daniel Boucher, did you know that Lambert started playing organized hockey at age 16, the advice that Lambert gave to Kent Hughes, saying that it's imperative that Demidov be well supported and discuss the impact of stardom on Habs players. Montembeault does a good job. Boucher speaks out about the highlights of the Canadiens, predictions for the playoffs, and the recipe for victory in the series. But the Sidney Crosby thing is buried deep within it. And to help us out, we're going over onto donlescoulisses.com because Matthias Terrien went out there and transcribed some of the comments that we care about. So I'll leave a link in the description to this article too. Kent Hughes asked Lambert if he should go get Sidney Crosby. The article opens up by talking about how the Canadiens will probably need to look out for other center options because Kirby Dach got injured and Newhook is more of a third-line player. In short, several options will be available to Kent Hughes and the Canadiens this summer to fill the hole at center on the second line, whether via trade or the signing of a free agent. One of the names that stands out as the most plausible option is Sam Bennett, but the dream of all Canadiens fans is obviously Sidney Crosby. We would all like to see the Penguins captain play for the Canadiens, even Kent Hughes. Indeed, the Habs GM asked Yvon Lambert, a former Habs player, if he should go get Crosby. This is what Lambert stated during the last segment on Ça sent la coupe, hosted by Mario Langlois on the 98.5 show. Pierre Gervais was also a guest, and the link is going to be in there. Back to Crosby, in fact. The article writes this. I'm going to try to read it in the way that it's presented, but I'm not too sure if I'm doing it correctly. In fact, former Montreal Canadiens players have been invited to 5-7s for 3 years since the arrival of the new management, and it was during one of these 5-7s that Kent Hughes questioned Yvon Lambert on this subject. Lambert was closing the place with Guy Lapointe during one of those 5-7s last year, and Kent Hughes took the opportunity to ask Yvon if he should go get Sidney Crosby. Again, I don't really know what a 5-7 is, but that is what it says here. I would assume it's some sort of an event. I said yes, for sure, go get Sidney Crosby, Lambert said. Unfortunately, this conversation took place before Crosby signed his 2-year, $8.7 million a year contract extension with the Penguins. However, this tells us that Kent Hughes was indeed on the case and was looking at the option of getting his hands on Crosby either via trade or signing him as a free agent. Now that Sid is back under contract with the Pens, things would obviously be more difficult, but not impossible, according to Yvon Lambert. The former Canadiens player believes the Penguins captain could really be tempted to come and win another Stanley Cup, this time with the team he loves, the Habs. Oh boy, we are getting into dangerous territory with the discourse that's starting to be presented here in this article. Even if a trade to the Canadiens remains unlikely, it's clear that the arrival of Demidov and the Habs' qualification for the playoffs can only help the chances of seeing Crosby tempted by a trade to Montreal. The Habs clearly have some good arguments on the table right now, but it remains to be seen whether Crosby wants to leave Pittsburgh or finish his career with the Pens. Now, the way everything is presented, it doesn't seem like it's guaranteed that Kent Hughes talked to Lambert and he was like, "Hey, Lambert, help me out here. I'm really thinking about going after Sidney Crosby. Should I do it? Here are the pros and cons." It just seems more so like it could have been an out-of-nowhere, random ragtag comment like, "Oh, hey, I should probably go get Crosby, huh?" Maybe a casual, colloquial, in-the-moment kind of quip. It does seem like that's possible based off the way it's being described here, but the fact that Kent Hughes was even going out there and, at the very least, joking about it, very least joking, very most legitimately considering it, it shows that there is at least some consciousness within the Canadiens organization that acknowledges the path that Crosby has had as a hockey fan, as a hockey player, as a hockey stud, and as a potential Montreal Canadien in the future. It is interesting here to confirm Kent Hughes' trade interest in Sidney Crosby, and that also might seem like one of the most kind of things that you could be greeted with, like, "Oh yeah, of course, the Canadiens want Sidney Crosby, so do 30 other NHL teams, they all want this guy." But to hear specifically from a former player that the GM of the Canadiens was indeed bringing up Crosby's name in potential trade moves and trade ideas, that gets me going. And that is something that I think we should all just take with a little bit of anticipation, because obviously I'm not saying Sid is ever going to play for Montreal, but if it does happen one day, it doesn't seem like something out of Kent Hughes' comfort zone. So that's ultimately what I wanted to talk about in this video. Some comments made by Yvon Lambert. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about the Habs actually having confirmed trade interest in Sidney Crosby? Let me know in the comments, what do you think? Do you think a trade could get done? Do you think this guy will ever play for the Montreal Canadiens? Yes or no? Comment section is your floor. I hope you enjoyed this video. Sign on, and bye.